In this video, what we're going to be doing is spending some time talking about the right realist explanations of crime. Specifically thinking about explanations for crime, deviance, social order, and social control, including the right realist beliefs about the causes of crime and the solutions to crime. So, generally speaking, when we think about right realist theories, we associate ourselves with sociologists such as James Q. Wilson and George Kelling, and other criminologists who advocates for what is known as broken windows theory crime prevention, which we will get to later on in this lesson. But first, I'm going to begin by talking about what the right realist conception is in association with the causes of crime. So, right realists are more inclined to emphasize the individual characteristics of people, including psychological factors or even biological factors, when it comes to how this contributes to their criminal behavior. So, the view suggests that some people may just be predisposed to deviance as the result of their genetic makeup, or more likely these days, their psychological traits. So some realists argued that there are examples that are genetic or biological, which can lead certain people to be predisposed to committing crime. These can be things that include low intelligence or just aggressive tendencies, and these often have a greater inclination towards criminal behavior, regardless of their social circumstances. In addition, right realists point to things like psychological factors that contribute to their predisposition to crime. So, psychological theories suggest that personality disorders or emotional dysfunctions or cognitive disorders all contribute to criminal behavior. There is an emphasis, therefore, on antisocial personalities or lack of empathy, which might be more likely to engage in criminal activities. Now, while these biological and psychological explanations for crimes have indeed been have been quite heavily criticized for being overly deterministic or even just reductionist, they do nevertheless provide a framework for understanding why some people might choose to commit crimes more readily than others. But a core tenet of realist theory is the idea that social control mechanisms, i.e. the institutions and the systems that regulate behavior, that these are crucial for maintaining order in society. So the right realist would argue that crime results when these social controls break down, allowing an individual to act according to their personal desires without rules for society. Now, this includes an understanding of poor socialization, specifically within the family, as being a major cause for crime. So, if, for example, children are not taught proper social values, they are not taught about discipline and respect for authority within family structure, if this is the case, then they are more likely to become involved in criminal activity later on in life. The characterization of the, quote, dysfunctional family is often characterized by single-parent households, by lack of discipline, and by weak parental authority, and is seen as a frequent explanation for criminal behavior according to a right realist theory. In addition to this, you have the fact that right realists may argue that there is a decline in traditional values and social norms, and that this decline in these traditional values has led to an increase in deviance. So the weakening of norms around respect for authority, around hard work, and around personal responsibility have all eroded the social order. This social order erosion has led to more crime as people feel less accountable for their actions. And then finally, the right realist might point to the idea of weak social cohesion and weak communities that leads to a greater amount of deviance. So communities that lack strong social ties or lack shared norms are more prone to crime, as individuals are not necessarily connected to each other, and they don't feel connected to each other within their neighborhood. Areas with high levels of residential mobility, poverty, and social fragmentation tend to correlate with higher crime rates because, according to a right realist, residents are less likely to intervene or to report in the criminal activity. That's not even necessarily a right realist claim, that's just a thing about crime statistics, I guess. So, with all this being said then, right realists will often adopt what is known as a rational choice perspective when they look to analysing the ways in which crime operates. It suggests that individuals commit crimes after weighing the costs and benefits of a particular decision. And so the rational choice theory posits that people make a decision on the basis of this cost-benefit analysis. If it rewards, so financial gain, excitement, adrenaline, or social status, if the rewards of committing such a crime are greater than the costs, i.e. the risk of getting caught or punished, then individuals will engage in the criminal behaviour by making the rational choice to do so, by weighing up the cost-benefit. Crime is therefore seen as a rational decision that is made by individuals in response to opportunity and situational factors. So bear this in mind when we think about comparing this to other sociological theories. If you think about Marxist theories of criminal activity and criminalization, they point to social inequality and they point to structural factors that causes people to commit more crime. Whereas the right realist here is talking more about the idea that people who make decisions to commit crime are rational and are making this decision with this rationality in mind. They are making the cost-benefit, they are doing a cost-benefit analysis in response to whether or not this crime is worth committing or not. A theory developed by Lawrence Cohen and Marcus Felsen in 1979 is known as routine activities theory. This builds on rational choice perspectives by focusing on how changes in people's daily routines might be able to influence their opportunities to commit crime. So it suggests that crime occurs when there are three elements, converge together and are therefore in coherence with each other. So firstly, a motivated offender. Secondly, a suitable target, and thirdly, a lack of capable guardianship. So, for example, in application of this theory, if a person is left alone in a house without an alarm system or neighborhood watch, the opportunity for burglary increases. By changing routines, such as improving security or reducing target availability, crime is able to be reduced. So with this being said then, what are the solutions to tackling crime and deviance according to a right realist theorist? Well, right realism tends to, in the aggregate, advocate for tougher stances on crime. So emphasis on stronger law enforcement, stronger deterrence, and social control as all solutions that can be attributed to ideas related to crime. The idea of zero tolerance and broken windows policing, as advocated and developed by James K. Wilson and George Kelling in 1982, is a theory which suggests that allowing minor forms of deviance, such as vandalism and public disorder, to go unchecked leads to an environment in which more crime that is more serious can occur later on in the future. So, the idea here behind broken windows theory is that if minor offences such as graffiti or public drunkenness are ignored, it sends a message that deviance is tolerated, and this can then lead to the escalation of criminal behaviour. So the result is that you focus on minor offences, so things that police can prevent, such as disorder, such as graffiti, such as drunkenness, or these drunken disorderliness, all this kind of stuff. This contributes to more serious offences, so the police should focus on these lower level crimes. The approach therefore involves an increased surveillance, community policing, and rapid intervention to restore public order within neighbourhoods. In addition, you have the idea of zero-tolerance policing. Zero-tolerance policing and zero-tolerance policies advocate for strict approaches when it comes to all form of deviance, no matter how minor that infraction might be. So under a zero-tolerance policy, police might be expected to respond vigorously to every single possible infraction, with the belief that this will just deter further criminal activity. The idea here is that by preventing low-level crime, higher-level crime can be avoided. So with all this being said then, the sort of general policy perspective that a right realist might think about is on the idea of stronger sentences and deterrence. Deterrence through punishment is used as a means to reduce crime. They argue that criminals weigh the benefits of committing a crime against the risks of being caught. And so, if you then take into that cost-benefit analysis, into that consideration, the fact that you could increase punishments and the severity of punishments, then that can result in a weighing up of a cost-benefit analysis, which essentially concludes that the cost is too great in order to commit the crime. So, if punishments are seen as sort of swift and certain and severe, then individuals will be deterred from committing those crimes in the future. So the result is an increase in sentencing, advocating for longer prison sentences and the removal of early prison release options for offenders. They believe that harsher penalties will act as a deterrent for potential offenders. Some advocate for something known as the three-strike laws. This is something that was introduced mainly in the 1990s by the Clinton administration. So the right realists support views such as three-strike laws, which mandates life sentences for repeat offenders after committing 3 felonies. The idea behind such laws is that habitual offenders need to be removed from society completely, and therefore 3 strikes and you're out, essentially. A further element of crime prevention, according to the right realist, is through the environmental design, CPTED as it is abbreviated, crime prevention through environmental design. The idea here is focusing on altering the physical environment to reduce the opportunities for crime. So such environmental changes might include measures that better protect the better street lighting, for example. You have increased in the amount of light that is about a particular street. It has been shown that crime increases in areas where light is dimmer. Other things include the use of surveillance cameras, the creating of defensible spaces such as fences and natural surveillance, the designing of neighborhoods to increase community interaction and watchfulness. All of these things are aiming to reduce crime opportunities by making environments less attractive or less accessible to offenders. Right realists might also come to the conclusion that crime prevention starts with the family. They emphasize the importance of strong parental control, the importance of traditional family structures, and of proper socialization when it comes to preventing future deviance. The right realists believe that one of the most effective ways to reduce crime is to just simply strengthen families by encouraging better parenting practices, such as the promotion of two-parent households, or the encouraging of parents to instill discipline and respect for authority in their children. So with all this being said then, what are the criticisms that you can levy against a right realist approach? Well, the first is this idea that there is an overemphasis placed on individual responsibility. A critic of right realism might suggest that they focus too much on the responsibility of an individual and fail to adequately take into account the structural causes of crime, things like inequality, poverty, and social disadvantage. In addition to this, the idea of harsh policing, such as broken windows and zero tolerance, have been criticized for disproportionately targeting minority groups, poor communities, and often youth movements, leading to over-policing and criminalization of minor behaviors. And then finally, critics might argue that right realism places too much emphasis on the punishment and the enforcement of law, rather than long-term crime prevention strategies such as education, employment, and social support.